G'day and welcome back. Today I've got an Astor Model JJ. These were built from about 46, 47, not quite sure how long they ran for, but certainly a few years. This is my radio. A friend of mine asked me to have a look at it for him. He told me he picked it up about 20 years ago. At some point he did some repairs to it and it worked fine for a while, but one day it gave a loud pop and there was some smoke came out. He took it out, put it in the garage, I think he said, and it just sat there for 10 years. He said, yeah, I'd like to get it going again. I'm not going to do a whole lot to it. I'll try and polish the case up a little bit, maybe sort this grill cloth out. The dial glass looks in pretty good condition. I can see some of the numbers have deteriorated, but sitting in a damp shed for 10 years will do that. The case is dulled off quite a bit. I'll see if I can polish it up, make it look a bit nicer anyway. I'll turn it around, we'll have a look at the back. Here's the back of it. It's only got 4 valves, so it's a reflex set. This is a 6B8 and that's got the 2 detector diodes in it, so it amplifies the IF. It all comes back and it amplifies the AF and of course rectifying it as well. Here's the transformer. There's no soot coming out the vent there, so it's probably not the transformer that's gone. There's a date on the choke there, 23rd of June 1947. I can see an empty dial string pulley here. The dial string's intact, but they've missed that pulley when they restrung it. This valve here's got the top cap missing and they've just soldered the wire straight onto the anode wire. I'll take the chassis out of the case, we'll flip it over, and I think we'll find what's wrong with it pretty quickly. It's out of the case, we'll flip it up, we'll immediately see what's wrong with it. Well, that's disappointing because I expected to see a capacitor blown out and black soot everywhere, but it's clean. The capacitors are intact by the look of it. One there. That one's alright, that one's alright. There's a couple of new ones there. I think my friend put those in. They're intact as well. Resistors are all there. He did say there was smoke, so there's no sign of any damage at all, like soot or anything. That's the transformer end. There's that wire there. The rubber's come off, but it's a ground wire anyway, so that looks like it's got heat shrink on it. That's the rectifier. There's the 2 plates coming in. There's a capacitor there. That's the old original capacitor. That should have been taken out, but it hasn't blown the end out or anything. I'll just check the transformer, and this will be the primary, and I might have to put power on this thing just to see what's going on. So this will be about 30 ohms. They've got 20, 28. The secondaries are these 2 guys here. It should be about 300 odd, 340. There's a cathode bypass cap on the output valve, so that means the center tap is going straight to ground. So we should get half of what do we have, 340 or something, 173, so this will be 165 or something, 164. Okay, so that transformer's fine. Of course that doesn't mean it won't short out when you put some load on it. I really can't see anything wrong with it. Everything's intact. I can't see any burn marks. I'll put some power on. Let's see what happens. I'm set up to try it. I have a camera on the front there so I can see the tuning knob and the volume knob. I've got a couple of cameras on the base there in case it does blow something. I have my multimeter here. It's plugged into a little test port. It tests the B+ at the anode of the output valve. Now I've got it on dim bulb. I've got full power going to it. The bulb should save us if something goes wrong. I'll just move out of the way. It looks normal so far. We've got some B+ there. Not hearing anything. That looks about right. 190 odd volts. 32 watts might be a little bit high. I've got 180, 190. It's not making any noise. So we got B+, so that means the output transformer's okay, the choke's okay, the rectifier's okay, but it's not working. I'll scratch the aerial up the top here. No, nothing getting through there. Here. No. So there's nothing coming out of the amp. The amp is not working. That should be the grid. There's no noise from that either. So we passed the volume control. There's no noise at the grid. That 6v6 is probably gone. Let's take my meter out and we'll check the voltage on the screen. Should be that one there. No screen voltage. Yes. Oh no. Screen voltage there. So that valve was not working, or something's not working. So it's got screen voltage. We know it's got plate voltage. I'll try a new valve in there. I put a new 6v6 in. This is the old one. It was cold when I pulled it out, so the filament's gone on it. Let's put some power on again. The lamp didn't come on at all then. Here's the noise. It's just static. Well, it's working. It's not picking up any stations. No hum in it. So even with that old capacitor in there, it's not picking up any stations. I'll turn the aerial on, that'll help.
Playing neatly, and there wasn't a lot between them. They're 2 starts ago. Since then, Brave One put his rivals to the sword, so he'll gain a bit of confidence from that. Sacred Rocks, great winner there last start. I think there's more depth to this race, but you had to like the way that she really attacked the line. Margin was only narrow, but her closing splits were pretty slick. Again, though, she's drawn wide, so I'm not sure where she gets to in.
So I think the report of smoke might have been a bit of a furphy, because it probably made a bang, maybe, but no smoke. So that was a bit anticlimactic. I expected something a bit better than that. What I will need to do though, I will go and replace some of these older capacitors. This Elner here will need to go. He's got a couple there, they're probably okay. This is the bypass cap for the output valve cathode. So that should go, that's too old. I'll change the 2 paper caps. The styro should be alright there. There's another one there, I'll get rid of that. That's the coupling capacitor, yeah, I'll get rid of that one as well. I have the 6v6 valve that was in the radio. I've put it in my tester here. I used my multimeter to buzz out the filament and it came up as being okay. It was about 3 ohms. I'll test it. It may well be the socket's the problem. Okay, that should have warmed up by now. There's nothing happening. It did show continuity though. I'm at my workshop. I've removed the valves and I think the chassis is just going to clean up real easy. Yeah, I think it's an aluminium chassis, so yeah, look, that's just going to wipe off and I'll just run over it with a bit of isopropyl alcohol, something like that. The transformer's heavily rusted. I'll put some rust converter on it and just try and clean it up a bit. I don't want it to look like it's been serviced. I want it to look like it's been sitting around for 80 odd years. The back plate for the dial is not in the best condition. It's got a little bit of rust on it and I don't think it was ever quite that yellow. But I think I'll probably repaint that. This bottom panel here is interesting. And it's interesting because these lamps are actually below the edge of the backplate. And I couldn't work it out at first, but then I cleaned that off, and that's an opaque piece of plastic. And the light shines up and lights behind the glass. So this needs to be in reasonably good condition. The glass has a lot of clear areas in it, so you can see right through. So I'll try and freshen that up a bit. The speaker has some very heavy rust on it, so I'll treat it with some rust converter and just try and spray it lightly so it doesn't look too much like it's been resprayed. So I'll get to work cleaning this and come back when it's all done. I've cleaned the chassis, it looks really good. I'll remove the rust off here and treat it, but I'm just going to have to sand it a bit to get the really heavy stuff off. It's really quite heavy. I'll also remove the heavy rust from the transformer. I used a wire brush on that as well, and it's cleaned it up pretty well actually. But I'll put this on, it's just a rust converter. I'll just be careful not to get it all over the place. I'll just do the same to this speaker. I'll have to let that work for a little while. It says on the instructions 30 minutes. It also says don't let it dry out, so I'll keep checking and make sure it's not drying out. Add a bit more converter if I need to keep it moist. I've removed the back plate. It was only 2 bolts, so it was easier to work with it off the chassis there. That is actually glass, I think, because I can see the edge of it. Yeah, it's glass. I thought it was plastic, but it's not. I think I'll just sand this back. I've done it in the past, and the new paint seems to stick to it pretty well, so I'll just sand it all back. I'll put a bit of rust converter on the rusty bits, and then I'll be able to paint it. I've wiped the rust converter off this transformer, and that's come up. Gee, that's come up nice. So I'll do the speaker as well. I did come back and put another coat on it. It did start to dry out. It's fairly warm today. So the black on there is where it's converted the rust. And you can paint straight on top of that. No worries. I'm happy with that. That looks really good. I'll clean it all off with some shellite and then I can give it a coat of paint. I sanded this back plate back and I've put some rust treatment on that as well. Yeah. And once again, that's turned black where the rust was. Now I'll clean this up before I paint it. I'm a bit unsure about the colour because that's been sanded back and it really didn't change much. It is that yellow colour by the look of it. So I'm not sure if I've got anything to match that. I've cleaned the transformer up. I've got some rag here with some black paint on it, so I'll just rub that on there. And hopefully that'll look pretty natural. I don't want to spray paint it or anything. Just finishing off this last side as well. So now I could have just put it on with a brush, but I didn't want it that thick. I just wanted to just colour it, that's all. I think that looks pretty much what I was after. The dial back plate had some pits where the rust was, so I've put some spray filler on there. That'll dry. I'll be able to sand that smooth, then I'll give it a top coat. I was a little concerned you'll be able to see it when you look through the dial, so I thought I'd better make a decent job of that. I've sanded all that down. It's nice and smooth now. So I've got a colour here. I had to go to the shop to get it, the hardware. It's close. The lid colour's not the same colour as that, so I'll assume that's the right colour. It's not far off it. That's pretty good. Very good. I'll let that dry. I'll give it a couple of coats, but gee, that's not bad. I'm happy with that. The cone on the speaker's okay. The suspension around here is very weak and has some little radial cracks around it. So I'll paint it with some contact adhesive. I've thinned this out with a bit of mineral turpentine, and this stuff never really dries. So this will form a skin and allow it to still move as a as a suspension, but it won't go hard. I think I should have thinned this out a bit more. It's going hard as I'm using it. It's drying out. That should work. I'll let it dry, but we'll get a few more years out of the cone now. I have everything inside now. I've refitted the dial plate and I've tightened the strings on the back. They were a bit loose. It was slipping. But it's working really well now, so that's working all right. While I was fitting the dial plate back on, I noticed a couple of things wrong with these trimmers on top of the tuning capacitor. This one here doesn't have a sheet of mica in between it. That's missing. And this one here doesn't have the wire wrapped around it. This trimmer here is a ceramic tube. It has a wire running down the middle of it. It's covered in wax, and it normally has some wire wrapped around it. And to trim it, you would just remove the wire until you got the right capacitance. Now that wire should attach over here, or certainly to ground, so it'd be that point there. Actually, there's the wire there. Well, it's broken off. I have spare ones of these capacitors, so I could just replace it. This one here, I could either rewind it with some new wire or fit another one similar to that. The speaker can go back on as well, so I'll do that. I need to wire it back in. I'll come back and we'll have a look at the capacitors. I mounted the speaker back and I've connected the wires. There's 4 wires coming up. There's one there, one there, one there, and one here. I replaced a couple of resistors here while I was at it. They were out of spec. This one was fine. It was perfect. That's pin 8 of the rectifier, so that's the output, and that's going to this capacitor here, which is an 8 microfarad. So I'll cut that wire out and I'll just put a capacitor in here. There's an earth point there and go straight over to pin 8 there. There is one minor problem that I struck.
Folks are dumb where I come from, they ain't had any learning.
You're probably wondering why I have the choke out of the radio and holding it. I managed to pull the wire out of the choke there. Now there's the wire I need to reconnect to, so I'll have to strip this back and make a good connection and re-secure this wire. I should explain how I damaged this. I was trying to just peel off some of the insulation on one end, and I was holding it and trying to pull it off with some side cutters. I lost my grip and it just pulled out. You can see the wire there. I could probably just wrap that around another bit of wire and put it up there and put some glue in it, but I'll just cut this cardboard cover off. And there's the tape. I'll carefully cut the tape so I can get to the wire there a bit. Alright, so that's intact, that's okay. I've cleaned off the insulation off that fine wire that's in the transformer, and I'll just solder it onto this new bit of yellow wire. And I've got to tuck it in there without breaking it. Okay, I'll put some adhesive in there to hold that all together. I have some 5-minute epoxy here. I'll lay that in there. Push that over there. So while I've got the epoxy here, I might as well glue the whole thing back together. Push all that together. There's plenty of adhesive in there. I think that'll be good. So I'll let that set for half an hour or so. Now the smart thing to do would have been to check that I had continuity before I glued it all together. No, that's fine. Alright, I'll wait till that dries. I'll reinstall it and we'll come back. There's the new yellow wire from the choke. It's connected to there. The black one that was on the choke is going back in there as well. I've put the 10 mic capacitor in there. That's quite neat. This green wire here was a rubber coated one, so I've replaced that, and you can just see it coming around the corner here. This area here was a mess. That's replaced all this stuff. The ulnar cap needed to go. The resistors were a bit high, and there's a Phillips cap there. It's got a crack around it, so I thought I'll get rid of that as well. And it was just a mess. It was up here, it was just layer on layer of old parts that have been snipped off and added on. So I've cleaned all that up. I've done a fair bit of work in this area here, plus of course this area around here. So I'm going to put some power on it and just make sure it's still working. The radio's all set up. I tested all the valves and they were all really low. They were well worn. So I've put a glass one of these 6A8s in here. It had a metal one in there, so I just temporarily put a goat shield on there. And I've attached a clip to ground it. So it should work. Let's see what happens. Dim bulb, of course. Bulb's not really coming on. 26, 22. Yeah, it looks good. Oh, there it is. Whoa. Okay, well it doesn't work, does it? That's a massive hum. I've done something wrong. I have the radio working again. After I stopped filming yesterday, I got the schematic and I went through and I checked everything I had done here and it was correct. And I checked this point here. This point was shorted to ground. I moved all this stuff around. I put a bit of insulation on there. I should have done that in the first place. It's now not shorted. I don't think what I'd had there was shorted. I think the short's somewhere up here. And these speaker wires that are coming through have been reworked previously, and they actually have joins in the middle of the wire there, and they're covered with heat shrink, I think. So maybe one of those joins is a bit dodgy and it's come apart. I'm not sure. Shorting this out does not produce a hum. So it wasn't that. There's something going on in there. I'll replace those speaker wires. But it is working. I'll turn it over and show you. Okay, I'm all set up. I've put the old valve back as part of the troubleshooting. I don't think that made any difference. And this one still has missing its grid cap, so I've got a clip lead on there. That'll probably pick up a lot of interference. So I'll turn it on. Should be on a station, I think. Turn it up, I think. Oh, there it is.
For like good quality skew with a mixer and not the black stuff
So,
that comes in a red kit.
there it is, back to working. I'll continue to change the capacitors and the resistors as required, and when they're all done, I'll come back and test it again and make sure it still works. I've finished doing the work on the chassis, and I'm just doing the speaker wires here. I've put new ones on. And here's the old wires, and as you can see, the insulation's falling off that one. I don't think that was the reason it's had that hum in it. You know, it's got joins in there, but they're okay. So I'm not really sure what happened there. Anyway, I'll put the speaker back in and we'll have a look underneath. I've wired the speaker in, and here's all the work I've done. I've replaced every resistor, bar one, which is down here, and this is the cathode bypass resistor. And I've replaced a lot of the wire, particularly if it was, you know, connected to a capacitor or resistor. You might as well just change it for something a bit more suitable. Here's the casualty list, and you can see all the resistors there. I don't know how many there are, 15, 20 or something. You know, 6 or 7 capacitors, whole load of wire. This was the coupling capacitor for the output valve. That was leaking, and this one's interesting. It's 2 47 microfarad capacitors in parallel. This is the second smoothing cap, or is being used as the second smoothing cap. It's only supposed to be 16. They've got 2 47s parallel, which is 94 microfarad. The voltage is only 250, and that's about B+. So it was running right on the limit. If they meant to put them in series, perhaps they would have halved the capacitance, so you would have ended up with half 47, so 23. And they've put a resistor on here, so whether that was to try and limit the inrush, yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. I nearly left it in there. I wasn't going to bother, and then I thought, oh, I better have a look. So it's a good thing I did. I know it's all working. I haven't tried it since I put the speaker back, so I'll turn it over. We'll just give it a quick demo, and then we can move on to the alignment. Apart from the rectifier, I've got all new valves in. This one was a metal valve, so it had a shield built in. I've had to put a goat can on that one, and I've grounded it to pin 1. This one now's got a connector for the valve cap. So let's put it on. I'll put it on dim bulb because I have had those speaker wires disconnected.
Talk now.
Hi, it's Loretta Ryan from 6 ABC Radio Brisbane. I spend the week on a Friday night.
The volume control needs a bit of work.
Using sounds of ABC classics on the ABC. It's the class. Good afternoon.
That's working.
Third, maybe Walter Avenue from Rookie.
That's working much better than it was. Much better. The next step is to do the alignment, and I know the alignment for the dial is going to be out because the oscillator trimmer and the antenna trimmer are non-functioning. That one hasn't got its little mica sheet in there, and this one's missing its coil of wire. I do have some mica. This is used as insulation for a transistor, so keep it insulated from the chassis. And previously I've cut a little square out with a hole in it, but I didn't use it. So with a bit of luck, I should be able to take this screw out, insert that, and this will be working again. I did think of putting a coil of wire on this old one here, but I think I'll take it off, and I've got some second-hand ones here. I could put those in. So I'll take that out, and this one should fit in there like that, I think. So as long as these have got the same capacitance as that one, well, they should work all right. That's nice and solid. I'll set the radio up and I can do the alignment. I've set the radio up to do the alignment. I will do the IF transformers first. I've got my generator on. I've got it on 455, which is the intermediate frequency for this radio, and I've loosely coupled the generator to the grid of the mixer. I'll turn on the modulated signal. I have my analog meter here as well. I'll just peak that. All we're looking for is the highest reading. I'll come back to that one. I'll try this one. There it is. Just down on the bottom one now. That one was about right. And the other one, that one was right too. I'll try this one again. This is really hard to turn. That looks about it there, I think. This one again. Yeah, that's about it as well. I'll run over these again until I get them perfect. I'll come back and we'll do the radio frequency. I'll do the RF alignment, and that entails aligning the two halves of this capacitor here. This one here is the oscillator, that one's the tuner, and I've marked the frequencies I need on this bit of tape. I have the generator on 600, I've got the radio powered and I'm pointing to 600, but I can't hear the tone, so we'll have to find it. There it is there. So it's a fair way out. This is the oscillator patter. I need to adjust that at the lower end of the frequency band. So I'll move the dial along here and just follow it up with the patter adjustment. That looks pretty good. Now we'll go up to 1420 there. Now put the generator on 1420. Okay, and that's right on there. Oh, that's not bad. So that's this one here. This is the trimmer, so we do that at the top end. Wow, that's the one that's the new one I fitted, and it's right on. Cool. We can also trim this one up. This is the one I put the new mica. Can't believe it. It's, I don't know. Oh, you're getting a bit out of that one. Okay. Now I've got to go back to 600. In these radios there's two coils. This is the oscillator coil. Underneath is an antenna coil. The antenna coil is not adjustable. This oscillator one you can adjust. So the antenna coil underneath, it's set in its position, and we need to adjust the oscillator coil and the tuning pointer to match it. Disregard the needle at the moment. We can adjust that if we need to. What we've got to do is set the generator at 600, which it is. Then we'll adjust the oscillator to match it. So what happens is I can peak the oscillator. So that's about peak. What I'll do now is just move the tuner a bit, follow it up with the oscillator and see if we get any more. No, it's getting worse. So I'll go the other way. Go a bit more. There we go. Go a little bit more. No, it's got worse. Oh no. Okay. I'll just tune away both ways on the tuner knob on the front. That's it. So now the oscillator, I'll just do it a little bit more. There we go. The oscillator coil and the antenna coil are both resonating at 600 kilohertz. Now we just check to see where the dial's pointing, and that's exactly on 600. So I don't need to move the dial to match it, but that's how you would do it. If that was out slightly, you would have to move this along physically. I'll go up here and make sure that hasn't adjusted anything up the end there. Back to 1420. That looks pretty good. I'll just trim the antenna, just make sure that's still peaked. There you go. Alright, that's all there is to it. That's the alignment done. I wanted to check some voltages. This radio has a port in the back. You can put the probe in there and it'll tell you what the B plus is. And so far we've got 251. So that's on the plate of the output valve. The schematic says it should be 245, so that's very close. But I want to check the grid bias as well, so I'll have to flip the radio over. Now obviously the radio is upside down. There's the indicator for the 6V6, that's the output valve. So that's pin 1, there's pin 2 there. There's the plate there, we saw that before, 250 odd, 252. That's the screen, should be 260. It's 272, but that's all a bit high. This is the grid here, there's the grid stopper. So that's the grid, it should be 0. It's pretty much 0. And the cathode is over here. And that should be 14, 12.6, that'll do. Alright, as long as it didn't have any voltage on the grid. I've removed the diode glass and I've washed the case a bit. There was a little cover over these two holes here. This would have come with shortwave and a tone switch at some point, and they've put this nice neat little escutcheon on there to cover it up. So I've taken that off as well. You might be able to see that where it's been covered up. That's what the Bakelite would have looked like 80 years ago. As we saw when I first got the radio, the case is a bit sun damaged. It's a bit light. There's a scratch there, I think you can see. Yeah, I think there's a couple over here too. So I can probably sand those out. But first I'm just going to cut it back a bit. I have a fairly coarse cutting compound here. I'll try that out first. There's a bit of water. I'll try and encompass that scratch that's up the end there, see if it'll take it out. This is fairly coarse. I'll just wipe all that off. That doesn't look like it's done a whole lot. It's taken the coarseness off, it's smoother. So I've got a bit of Brasso here. I'm going to try and buff it up with that. And I'll just polish that off now. So that's not bad. It's still dull. It should be brighter than that, but it's not bad. You can still see that scratch there. I'll do something with that. I've got a bit of waterproof paper here. I'll just lightly sand it, and that should remove it. You can't go too far, or you'll go through the outer skin into the soft interior, and you don't want that. The scratch was around here somewhere. I can't see it anymore. I used P600 wet and dry to sand that out. I'll also do that bit there, that's pretty light as well. I'll keep going with this. I'll do the whole thing and come back when it's all polished. My friend and fellow YouTube creator Blitz Roehre over in Germany rang me one day and said, why don't you try this stuff on Bakelite cases? And it's called, well, it's gel coat and surface restorer. They call it Polytrol. Just reading the instructions on the back there, apparently you just wipe it on and let it dry off for about 20 minutes and then wipe off the excess. So we'll give it a go, see what happens. I only just opened this and tried a little bit on the bottom of the case to see what it did. And yeah, it just wipes on and I let it dry. I'm just going to need more than that. So it's apparently a marine type product. Use it on hulls and deck. Wow, that looks pretty good. Use it on metal, bumper bars, things like that. I think Blitz used it on the plastic bumpers on his car and he was very impressed. So yeah, gosh, hope it stays like that. I'll do the sides as well, of course. Wow, that looks fantastic. Here's the other side. I'll have to use a brush just to get into the corners here. The rag just won't go in there. I finished applying it and it looks really good. It is drying a bit duller than what it's showing up here, so it's probably going to dull off a bit. You can polish it once it dries, so we'll try doing that as well. But if it stayed like that, I'd be very impressed. I have the case back in my little workroom and I've refitted the dial, and I also cleaned up this plate here, scraped up the old material, cleaned it up and resprayed it. I've put some new material in there as well. So now I can put the chassis back. Alright, let's put it in. I'll put the chassis securing bolts in and I'll come back. There's another project finished and I'm very impressed with the way it's come out. It looks really good. The case is outstanding. Susie Quattro there, I'll get rid of her. She'll give me a copyright. It's working okay.
To ensure that there is baseline level access for everyone, which is great.
It is early morning, or it's morning.
In terms of group photograph,
so of course it'll work better at night. The back of the dial looks good, the colour behind it looks good. It's pretty much what it was originally.
I mentioned it a moment ago.
So that's a station I don't often get. I mean, it's not very clear, of course. I am in a valley and behind a mountain, so I struggle to get anything here. There should be another one here somewhere.
Cap, there has been some scratchings though, but it's now as short as 650. T's and C's apply, also 650. Applications has had some fans.
So it sounds good. The speakers worked alright after I repaired it. There's not much else up this end of the dial, so pointless going up there. But yeah, it sounds good.
The International Chamber of Commerce for Australia. He's an LNP member and director of Interport Cargo.
Well, that's it. As I said, very happy with it. When I picked it up from the owner, I said, oh, look, I'll try and polish it a bit, maybe, you know, make it look a bit better, but it's outstanding. I'm very happy with it. I think he will be too. So as usual, thank you very much for following along. I hope you enjoyed what I did this week, and I hope you can join me for my next radio adventure.